I want you to imagine a deeply unsettling scenario for a second. Just put yourself in this headspace.
Okay, I'm ready.
So you are sitting at your workplace. It could be in an office, a studio, a coffee shop, literally wherever you do your work.
Right.
And you are completely absorbed in what you're doing. The AC is humming, you're looking at your screen, and it is just a perfectly normal Tuesday.
Sounds pretty safe so far.
Yeah, exactly. But then a stranger approaches your desk, and you have never seen this person before in your life.
Oh, I don't like where this is going.
Right. So they look you dead in the eye, and they don't even say hello. Instead, they do something incredibly specific. They mirror an unconscious physical tic that you have used for years to calm yourself down when you're stressed.
Wait, like a personal habit?
Yes, like maybe it's the exact idiosyncratic way you roll your left shoulder, you straighten your spine, and you let out this very specific stuttering exhale. They do it perfectly, with terrifying precision.
That is awful.
It is. And then while you are sitting there frozen, just trying to process what you just saw, they calmly inform you that they believe they are your child.
Oh my God. I mean, it is the kind of psychological ambush that completely bypasses all your intellectual defenses.
He really does.
It doesn't give you time to formulate a logical response because it goes straight for the nervous system.
Yeah.
You aren't just being spoken to,
Mm-hmm.
you know? You are being physically replicated.
It is entirely visceral. And that visceral, skin-crawling territory is exactly where we're wading into right now. So welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Today we are talking about Audition by Katie Kitamura. And just to put it in a single sentence, this is a deeply unsettling, psychologically rich literary novel about an aging actress, identity, and the terrifying roles we play in our own lives.
That sums it up beautifully.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, reading this book left me feeling fundamentally off-kilter for days.
Same here. It really lingers.
It does. Because this isn't a traditional thriller, It's not a beach read where you're rapidly flipping pages to find out who committed a murder or robbed a bank.
Right. No detectives here.
Exactly. It is a brilliant, agonizing, slow burn of a novel that systematically dissolves the floorboards right out from under you. It forces you to question the actual fabric of your own reality.
It totally got under my skin, too. I found myself walking around my own house after reading it, just looking at my living room, looking at my family, and feeling this strange, creeping paranoia about the routines we fall into.
Oh, completely. You start side-eyeing your own life.
You really do. So the mission of our deep dive today is to unpack the central, haunting question of this brilliant 2025 novel, which is, where exactly does our performance end, and where does our real life actually begin?
It's the perfect question for this conversation. Because Katie Kitamura doesn't just casually ask it, she traps you inside it.
She really does.
The architecture of this narrative is designed to make you feel as claustrophobic and uncertain as the main character. We are figuring it out right alongside her.
So let's unpack this right from the beginning, because the way Katie Kitamura opens the book sets the tone perfectly.
The restaurant scene.
Yes, this incredibly uncomfortable lunch scene. The narrator, who is an older, very successful, unnamed actress, is meeting a young man named Xavier.
Right.
And she has chosen to meet him at this large, crowded, almost aggressively loud restaurant right in the middle of the financial district.
But consider why she makes that specific choice of venue. It's not a quiet, intimate cafe.
Definitely not.
It's not a private space where they can have a heart-to-heart. She deliberately wants a public arena.
She wants witnesses.
Exactly. She wants a space filled with corporate workers and noise. She is trying to engineer safety through public visibility.
Which completely backfires, honestly, because Katie Kitamura paints the scene so vividly that the public space actually feels oppressive.
It really does. It's suffocating.
You can feel the layers of glass in this restaurant. The narrator is observing the reflections of her own face staring back at her as she looks through the window before even walking in.
The doubling effect right from the start.
Yeah. Yes. There's this din of corporate traffic pressing against her mind. And there's this immediate, palpable power dynamic established just through what they order.
Oh, the drink orders are so telling.
They really are. It's barely past noon, and the narrator immediately orders a vodka tonic. She is visibly bracing herself.
She needs the liquid courage.
While Xavier, this incredibly tall, handsome, intense young man, orders a hamburger and French fries.
The narrator explicitly notes that it is the order of a child. And that is a fascinating detail to focus on.
It is such a brilliant, unsettling juxtaposition. She's drinking hard liquor in the middle of the day just to cope with the sheer bizarre terror of sitting across from him.
Right.
And he's sitting there with his fries, playing the role of the innocent boy. But to understand why this lunch is so fraught, we have to rewind. We have to explain how they got to this table in the first place.
We do, because the lunch is actually the fallout from an initial ambush.
The theater ambush.
Yeah. If we jump back 2 weeks prior in the narrative, the narrator is in her natural habitat. She is at the theater.
A safe space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's sitting in the darkened house watching a complex rehearsal unfold on stage, entirely absorbed in the magic of the performance.
She's completely in her element.
She is. The air is thin, her senses are keen, and then during a break in the rehearsal, this striking young man approaches her in the aisle.
Xavier.
Yes, Xavier. And he looks at her and says, simply, "I think you might be my mother."
Which, I mean, her immediate reaction is complete denial,
Yeah.
which is totally understandable.
Oh, absolutely.
She actually laughs in disbelief. She tells him there was no child, which is a pretty definitive, absolute statement.
Right, there's no gray area there.
But then Xavier does something that changes the entire temperature of the room and really the trajectory of the narrator's life.
This is the moment in Audition that truly hooked me, because he doesn't argue with her.
No.
He doesn't pull out a forged birth certificate or dramatic letter. He performs a gesture.
Yes.
He executes a downward movement of the shoulders, a sudden straightening of the spine, and a soft exhalation.
Let's pause and really unpack this, because this isn't just a random shrug or a sigh.
No, not at all.
This is a very specific, deeply ingrained physical tic that the narrator used to rely on early in her career.
Right.
When she was playing thin, poorly written roles, she would use this exact sequence of movements to artificially gather her spirit, to fake an emotion on stage that she wasn't actually feeling.
It was her secret internal crutch.
And he throws it right back in her face. It made me immediately ask, is this kid a highly sophisticated con artist, or is he just a terrifyingly obsessive fan?
It's hard to tell at first.
It's like someone hacking your passwords, but instead of stealing your bank info or your emails, they steal your physical essence. They steal the way your body unconsciously moves.
That analogy of hacking is actually very apt. The narrator herself notes the sheer artistry of that violation.
Artistry is a weird word for it, but it fits.
It does. If this is a con, there is an incredible, terrifying level of artistry to it.
Yeah.
It's artistry almost for the sake of artistry. He hasn't just casually watched her movies. He has isolated the precise moments of her weakness as an actor.
He studied her.
Exactly. He has spotted the exact physical mechanism she uses when she is struggling, studied it, likely practiced it in a mirror, and honed the reproduction so he could deploy it as a psychological weapon in real life.
It feels like a violent act. Even reading it, it feels invasive.
I would argue it is deeply violent. The boundary between the viewer and the subject is usually sacred.
Yeah, you sit in the dark and watch.
Right. As an audience member, you sit in the dark and watch the screen or the stage. The actor remains safely trapped in that designated space.
But Xavier breaks that.
Katie Kitamura writes this scene to immediately obliterate that boundary. Xavier has forced his way out of the passive audience and violently inserted himself into the performer's actual physical reality.
He is proving to her that he has consumed her so thoroughly that her unconscious cystics now live inside his nervous system.
Exactly.
It gives me chills just thinking about the implications of that. How do you even defend against that kind of attack?
You can't.
He's not attacking her with logic or facts that she can refute. He's attacking her with her own reflected image. He is weaponizing her own body against her.
And that profound violation speaks to the core vulnerability of her profession. Which brings us to the narrator's history, because her relationship with her own image and her own identity has been incredibly fraught long before Xavier ever showed up.
We definitely need to dive into her past. Katie Kitamura gives us this brilliant, painful look at what this woman has endured to get to where she is.
Hasn't been easy for her.
No, not at all. This narrator has had a very long career in the theater and in film, but for years, decades really, she was relegated to playing flat stereotypical roles.
Right.
The book specifically mentions that her characters were racially indeterminate. Her agent actually sat her down early on and suggested she change her name to get better parts.
Think about the psychological toll of that over a lifetime.
It's devastating.
To be told by the industry that dictates your livelihood that your actual specific identity is an inconvenience. That your specific humanity, your heritage, your actual name doesn't fit the neat narrative they want to sell to the public.
She was basically treated as a prop, a moving image with no actual voice.
Exactly.
She describes this agonizing gap between the fullness and complexity of the life she felt inside herself and the comical, offensive flatness of the characters she was forced to inhabit on stage.
It's an erasure.
A literal erasure of herself. Every time she stepped on stage, she was being asked to flatten herself out.
But I think it's important to note how she protected herself during those years.
That's a good point.
Because the roles were so thin and stereotypical, she never confused the fiction with her reality.
She kept a distance.
She didn't have to pour her actual soul into the work because the work didn't demand a soul, it just demanded a moving image, a caricature. So she kept a strict wall between her inner life and her performance.
That wall is crucial. But then the culture shifts. The industry slowly changes. She finally gets cast in a brilliant film directed by a man named Murata.
This is a huge turning point.
A massive turning point. And this is interesting. Murata was secretly dying of cancer during the production, which adds this incredible layer of raw, finite desperation to the work they are doing together.
It really heightens the stakes.
It does. In this film, she is finally allowed to be complex. She is finally allowed to be a fully realized human being on screen.
And paradoxically, this artistic triumph is where the danger truly begins for her.
Right.
To achieve that level of artistic breakthrough, to finally be real on screen, she has to dismantle all those emotional walls she built over decades to protect herself.
She has to let the character in.
Exactly.
I was reading this section and thinking about it like deep sea diving. It's as if she spent her whole career swimming in the shallow end of the pool, right?
That makes sense.
It was annoying, it was demeaning, but it was safe. She could always stand up and breathe.
Right, she was never in real danger.
And then Murata comes along and invites her to go deep sea diving into the Mariana Trench of human emotion. But she's doing it without a tether.
That's a great way to put it.
Once she was finally allowed to tap into her actual trauma, her actual soul, and pour it into her characters, she lost the ability to easily find the shore again. The method acting, the emotional reality of the characters, began bleeding out of the frame and staining her daily existence.
That analogy gets right to the heart of the philosophy of performance presented in Audition.
It's a scary concept.
Katie Kitamura is asking a very uncomfortable question here about the nature of art. How do you protect your inner core when your job requires you to actively commodify your deepest emotions?
Yeah, how do you turn that off?
When the narrator admits that the parts began to consume her, she's describing a very real, terrifying occupational hazard of the artist. If your instrument is your own psychology, what happens when you play it so hard that the strings snap?
She actually admits that sometimes the life performed on a set felt more real to her than her actual life.
Which is a terrifying confession.
It really is. It means her internal compass is broken. She can no longer tell magnetic north from a stage light.
And this broken, vulnerable state is exactly where she is when we meet her in the present timeline of the book.
Right.
She is currently rehearsing a new play, and she is struggling deeply with it.
So the play she is rehearsing is called The Opposite Shore. It's written by a very hotshot, brilliant young playwright named Max, and it's being directed by a woman named Anne.
And the dynamic in that rehearsal room is incredibly tense.
Tense is an understatement. The narrator is playing a woman who is racked by profound grief, a shell of a person. And the narrator is desperately trying to find the emotional truth of this character to defend the character's pain and give it dignity.
She's really doing the work.
But then she has this conversation with Max, the playwright, and Max basically dismisses her efforts.
Just totally shoots her down.
Max says the character is arid, she's cold. Max is actually bored by the very character she created.
It's a shocking moment of dissonance for the narrator. She feels intensely defensive, not just of the character, but of herself.
Yeah, because she's putting herself into it.
If the playwright holds the character in contempt, it implies a contempt for the performance as well.
Exactly.
The narrator is searching for a profound emotional breakthrough, digging into her own trauma to find the tears, and the playwright is essentially telling her, it's not that deep. The character is just a schematic.
And while she is drowning in this artistic crisis, trying to figure out how to bridge the gap between herself and this arid role, Xavier resurfaces.
You didn't just go away.
No, he hasn't just faded away after that initial rejection in the theater aisle. He has actually finagled a job as the assistant to Anne, the director.
He embedded himself.
He is now deeply embedded in her daily life. He is sitting in the theater every single day, watching her struggle.
It's during this period of intense creative insecurity that Xavier offers the narrator a piece of advice.
Oh man, this part.
He frames it as a dark joke that his father used to tell. But it is, in many ways, the psychological skeleton key to the entire novel.
I had to put the book down and stare at the wall for a minute when I read this part.
It's so intense.
The implications of this joke are staggering. So Xavier tells her this story. He says he had a friend, who he later admits was actually his father, who woke up one day and realized he no longer loved his wife.
Just completely lost the feeling.
He no longer took any joy in his children. He felt absolutely nothing for his family anymore. The emotional core of his life had just vanished.
But he didn't want to leave.
Right, he didn't want to leave them. He just wanted to feel the way he used to feel.
So his father asks his therapist what to do. And the therapist gives him an extraordinary, terrifying piece of advice.
This is the crazy part.
She tells him to pretend. She tells him to enact being in love with his wife as fully as possible, to perform the role of the loving husband and the joyous father with absolute unwavering conviction, even though he feels nothing inside.
And the punchline, the horrific, incredible punchline, is that it works.
It actually works.
Eventually, by faking the performance of love day after day, he actually falls in love with his wife again. He tricks his own brain into experiencing the reality of the performance.
I know you were genuinely shocked by this when we were discussing it before recording, but consider the psychological mechanism here.
It's wild.
It touches on William James's theory of emotion, the idea that action precedes emotion. We don't smile because we are happy because we smile. The physical act creates the internal reality.
Which is deeply unsettling, because is Xavier just talking about his own father? Is he giving us a tragic glimpse into his own messed up childhood where his father was just acting out love for him?
That's one read on it.
Or is this Katie Kitamura turning to the reader, breaking the fourth wall, and handing us the central thesis of Audition?
I think it's definitely the latter.
The idea that you fake the role until the role becomes your reality.
I would argue it is absolutely the central thesis.
Yeah.
And it is chilling. Because if you accept that premise, that acting out an emotion can literally summon that emotion into reality, then where does the performance end?
It blurs everything.
It means that our most sacred feelings, our love for our spouses, our love for our children, might just be the result of a very committed, long-term performance.
And Xavier isn't just telling her a story in a vacuum. He is issuing a direct challenge to her.
Yes.
He is saying, I know you're struggling to find the internal emotion for this play, so stop looking for it inside yourself. Just enact it on the outside, and the inside will eventually follow.
He's giving her acting notes.
But he is also implicitly talking about their own relationship. He is laying out his strategy. He's saying, I am enacting the role of your son, and if I play the role long enough, and if I can force you to play the role of the mother long enough, eventually it will just become real.
That is exactly what he is doing. And this raises an enormous question about consent in performance.
Yes, consent is a huge part of this.
In a theater, everyone agrees to the illusion. The actors consent, the audience consents. But Xavier is forcing her into a scene she never agreed to be in.
He's trapping her.
He is co-opting the tools of her profession and using them against her in her private life, attempting to hack her reality, just like he hacked her physical tick.
That brings us perfectly to the ultimate private sphere, her marriage. We have to talk about her husband, Thomas.
Thomas is such a fascinating character.
Because the domestic theater in this book is just as fraught, if not more so, than the actual stage she performs on.
The dynamic with Thomas is fascinating because it exposes how fragile their domestic reality already is, even before Xavier really gets his hooks into it.
They were already on shaky ground.
Think back to that lunch scene at the very beginning of the book in the financial district. We eventually learn that Thomas actually saw them there.
Oh, right. He was spying on them.
He was walking by, and he saw his wife, the narrator, having an intense, secretive lunch with a very young, very handsome man.
And what does Thomas assume? His immediate assumption is the most conventional, cliché narrative possible. He assumes she is having an affair.
Which is such a beautifully mundane misunderstanding compared to the bizarre psychological reality of what Xavier's actually doing.
Totally.
Kumas inserts them into a standard soap opera script.
But what's so telling is how Thomas chooses to handle this suspicion. He doesn't confront her with rage. He doesn't demand to check her phone or ask her who the young man was.
He avoids the conflict entirely.
Instead, he initiates a highly specific domestic ritual.
The morning coffee ritual.
Right. One morning, the narrator comes into the kitchen, and Tomas is just standing there pouring coffee and setting out pastries. And he suggests, very casually, that they do this every single day. A little breakfast together, just the two of them.
But consider what Tomas is actually doing here. He is executing the exact same strategy that the man in Xavier's joke used.
He's acting the marriage.
Exactly. Tomas is feeling the terror of the void. He is feeling the threat of the marriage dissolving because he thinks she is cheating. So what does he do? He doesn't talk about it.
He suppresses it.
He begins to violently enact the marriage. He creates a hyper-mundane, highly structured scene, the bourgeois, cozy roles of husband and wife drinking coffee with pastries, and he forces them both to play it.
It's a ritual of recommitment, but it's built entirely on a facade of avoidance. It reminds me of Erving Goffman's sociological theories about the presentation of self in everyday life.
Oh, the idea that we're all performing all the time.
Yes. We all play roles to maintain social order. The narrator even admits that in those banal rituals, she felt herself recommitting to the marriage. She returned to the coziness and safety of ordinary life.
It worked for a bit.
They are using the physical props of domesticity, the coffee cups, the pastries, the kitchen table, to guard themselves against the sheer terror of the unknown. They are actively performing the happy couple so that neither of them has to look at the massive cracks forming in the foundation of their relationship.
And for a while, the mechanism actually holds. The performance works as long as both actors implicitly agree to play their assigned roles and not look behind the curtain.
But Xavier doesn't care about their curtain.
No. Xavier introduces a new variable into their domestic theater, and the entire structure begins to warp.
Oh, boy. The dinner party, or whatever you want to call this bizarre, agonizing entanglement.
It's so uncomfortable to read.
Xavier brings his new girlfriend, a young woman named Hannah, to the narrator's apartment to meet Tomas and the narrator. Now think about the conventional script here. If Thomas suspected Xavier was the narrator's young lover, you would expect a dynamic of extreme tension, jealousy, maybe some passive-aggressive masculine posturing from Thomas.
But Katie Kitamura subverts our expectations completely. The psychological architecture of this scene is incredibly weird and deeply uncomfortable.
It goes in a completely different direction.
Thomas doesn't act like a jealous husband defending his territory.
He acts like something much worse. Instead of jealousy, Tomas exhibits this, and Katie Kitamura describes it so perfectly, this surreptitious, shameful veracity toward Hannah.
It's gross.
He looks at this young woman with the sharp, naked hunger of an old man. It's banal, and it completely shatters the noble, dignified, intellectual image of the husband that Thomas has been projecting for years.
And simultaneously, Tomas directs this trembling, almost obsequious tenderness toward Xavier.
Which makes no sense initially.
He murmurs affection to him, he touches his shoulder. The power dynamics have completely flipped, almost instantaneously.
Tomas is submissive now.
Thomas is no longer the patriarch of the house. He is a worried supplicant seeking Xavier's approval.
There is this one specific moment in the living room that I cannot stop thinking about because it is so visually striking.
The doubling.
Yes. Xavier and Thomas are holding hands, and then in a synchronized movement, they both look up and stare across the room at the narrator. The narrator describes it as a doubling. Their faces, which look absolutely nothing alike physically, suddenly hold the exact same expression.
It's super creepy.
Their individual identities seem to dissolve in that moment, and they become a unified front.
It's a terrifying visual because it signifies a complete shift in reality.
It makes you ask, who is actually directing this family drama now? Is Thomas still in control of his own house, his own marriage, his own mind? Or has Xavier completely hijacked the narrative?
Xavier is definitely running the show.
Xavier has stepped into their apartment and effortlessly rewritten the roles. He's turned the dignified husband into a lecherous old man and a fawning servant.
Xavier has unequivocally become the director of their reality.
Hmm.
And like any avant-garde director, he is pushing the boundaries of the scene further and further, testing how much the structure can bear before it collapses entirely.
He wants to break them.
He wants to see what happens when the actors break, which leads us to the absolute climax of the novel.
The breakdown of the set. Imagine coming home to your own living room and finding this. The atmospheric detail here is just extraordinary.
It's so vivid.
The narrator is coming home from a late rehearsal. She's walking down her street. She's tired. And for some reason, she looks up at her apartment building before she goes in.
And what does she see?
She sees that every single light in her apartment is blazing. Every window is a vivid, blinding rectangle of light.
And she notes that even the study, where Thomas usually only ever works by the soft, dim light of a desk lamp, is completely illuminated.
No shadows at all.
Every shadow has been eradicated.
The narrator experiences immediate vertigo. She describes this asphyxiating grip of panic because that much light isn't just unusual, it's wrong.
It's unnatural.
It violates the established rules of their private space. She races up the elevator, which of course feels agonizingly slow, and she's literally praying that it's just a medical emergency.
She'd rather it be a heart attack.
Exactly. She's hoping to find an ambulance-level crisis, a fall, an injury, rather than whatever her intuition is screaming at her is actually happening inside.
But consider what she sees when she finally opens the door. Katie Kitamura uses a very specific visual phenomenon here that is crucial to the overarching themes of Audition.
The flattened look.
Yes, because the blazing, aggressive, shadowless lighting, the interior of her own home appears strangely flattened. It lacks the three-dimensional depth of a normal, lived-in space.
The lighting acts like stage lighting. She says the objects in the apartment suddenly look insubstantial, like props.
Yeah, everything looks fake.
It's that feeling where you could pick up a heavy, expensive vase and suddenly realize it's just made of paper mache. She leans against the wall of her own hallway, the place she has lived in for years, the place she felt safe, and the wall feels hollow, thin, and rickety.
Like a theater flat. Like it might just fall over and reveal backstage scaffolding if she pushes too hard. The actual physical reality of her life has been transformed into a cheap theater set.
And then the auditory elements of the scene kick in. She's standing in this flattened hallway, and she hears a thump, then another thump, coming from the living room.
The surreal choreography of what she finds in that living room is permanently burned into my brain.
It's completely unhinged. The tables are covered in empty bottles. There is a red wine stain on the carpet that looks exactly like a blotch of blood. And Xavier is pacing the room, but he's not just walking, he is goose-stepping across the carpet.
Aggressive.
His movements are spiky, aggressive, and exaggerated. He's holding a throw pillow and violently smacking it with his hand. That's the thumping sound she heard. And he's whistling in this high, menacing growl, saying, "Come out, come out."
He has completely shed the polite, charming, slightly eccentric persona he used at the beginning of the book.
The mask is off.
The narrator notes that it's as if a secret, hidden, feral self has finally been released from its cage.
And it gets so much worse. Suddenly, Thomas, her dignified, intellectual, coffee-pouring husband, emerges from behind the sofa.
Oh, Ispert.
And he is crawling on all fours. His head is lolling heavily from his neck like an animal. And he's barking, "Not here," in this chipper, bizarrely military cadence.
It's so disturbing.
Like a deranged cadet reporting for duty. They are conducting some kind of absurd, terrifying raid inside their own home.
And Hannah, the girlfriend, is prone on the floor, laughing like a ghost. Xavier is handling her roughly, lifting her by the arms, letting her drop back to the floor. It is a tableau of complete, unrestrained chaos.
I was shouting at the book when I read this. I mean, what does this all mean? Did they all just lose their minds simultaneously?
It feels like it.
Did somebody spike the wine with hallucinogens? Are we witnessing a shared psychotic break?
It's a completely rational question to ask, but I would argue that looking at this as a clinical psychotic break misses the deeper point Katie Kitamura is making.
Okay, lay it on me.
What we are witnessing is not a medical emergency. It is the total catastrophic collapse of the agreed-upon social script.
Okay, let's break that down. What do you mean by the collapse of the social script?
Think about the coffee and pastries from earlier. Thomas and the narrator were keeping the chaos of their lives at bay by strictly performing the roles of normal husband and normal wife.
They're playing it safe.
They were sticking to a very rigid, socially acceptable script of bourgeois domesticity. You wake up, you drink coffee, you ask about each other's day. But Xavier has come into this environment and methodically dismantled that script.
He took away the safety net.
He has stripped away all the polite set dressing. He has pushed them until those conventional roles can no longer hold the weight of their actual suppressed desires, their neuroses, and their underlying animal instincts.
So you're saying Xavier basically forced them into an avant-garde play inside their own living room. He took away the script they knew, and without it, they just devolved.
Precisely. When the actors stop playing their assigned, socially acceptable roles, the whole structural integrity of their reality topples.
Wow.
Tomas isn't crawling on the floor barking because he's hallucinating. He's crawling on the floor because the dignified persona of the husband has been stripped away, revealing the grotesque, vulnerable, instinctual creature that was hiding underneath all along.
That makes a terrifying amount of sense.
Xavier, who's shown them that the walls of their reality are paper thin, and then he just punched his fist right through them.
That is so incredibly dark, and it makes so much psychological sense. The narrator is just standing there, paralyzed at the end of this elongated, brightly lit hallway, watching her reality disintegrate in front of her eyes. And what does she do? She finally acts.
She snaps out of it.
She kicks them out. She throws them all out into the night.
Which leads us to the aftermath. The manic energy is expelled, and the apartment returns to silence. But it's not a peaceful silence.
No, the damage is done.
It is a hushed, devastating, desolate silence. The illusion of safety in that apartment is permanently shattered.
The narrator says it was as if a break had been called in a rehearsal, as if it suddenly occurred to all of them that their lines were insufficient, the plot line was completely implausible, and they just couldn't keep the performance going for another second.
The show is over.
Xavier packs his bags and leaves. The play is seemingly over. But of course, with Xavier, it doesn't end there. There is a final script.
The ultimate performance. Sometime later, Tomas, who is still somehow tethered to Xavier acting almost as his subservient messenger, brings the narrator a physical manuscript.
A physical script that Xavier has written.
Yes.
And this isn't just any script he expects her to read and give notes on. Xavier has written a play, and he has written a role specifically for the narrator to perform. And when she asks what kind of part it is, the answer is just devastating.
The role is described by Tomas as a woman of your age and general disposition. A woman who can no longer distinguish between what is real and what is not real.
I mean, talk about on the nose. But also, what a brutal, inescapable trap.
He cornered her.
He has observed her descent into this exact psychological state, a descent, by the way, that he actively, maliciously orchestrated, and now he has commodified it into a script. He is offering her the chance to step onto a literal stage and perform her own unraveling for an audience.
This raises what I think is the most profound question of the novel. Why would she ever accept this?
Right, why not just burn the script?
After everything he has done, after the invasion of her life, the manipulation of her career, the destruction of her domestic peace, the humiliation of her husband, why does she take the script?
She takes it because, in that final sequence, Katie Kitamura reveals the profound, tragic mirror between the narrator and Xavier. The narrator looks at the script, and she looks at the fact that Xavier wants her to star in it, and she realizes something incredibly dark about herself. Xavier's ambition is the exact same as her own early ambition.
The desperate clawing need to be seen.
Yes. She admits that in the early days of her career, the audience's recognition was almost an end in itself. She says that it was only by being seen by an audience that she could say for certain that she existed.
That her limbs were real.
Exactly. That she wasn't just fading into the void.
She uses the phrase that she needed an audience to prove her own ontological reality.
Hold on, let's break that phrase down for a second, because ontological reality sounds like something out of a graduate philosophy seminar, and I want to make sure the concept is crystal clear.
Sure, it's a big concept.
If I'm understanding this correctly, ontology is the study of being. It's the fundamental state of just existing, like the old riddle. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound?
Right.
She is essentially saying that if she is alone in a room and no one is watching her, she fundamentally does not believe she exists. She has no internal proof of life. She requires an external gaze, thousands of strangers staring at her to make her real.
That is a perfect explanation.
Hey.
Her existence is entirely dependent on being perceived, and she recognizes that exact same existential hunger in Xavier.
He's the same way.
He has orchestrated this entire massive, destructive, con-playing her son, hijacking her director, seducing her husband, shattering her home all, just to guarantee that she would look at him. He needed an audience of one to prove he existed.
Katie Kitamura uses this phrase, the superimposition of one mind on top of another mind. The narrator realizes that Xavier has essentially superimposed his mind onto hers. He has written her reality, and now he is asking her to perform it back to him. And in the end, she accepts the role.
She accepts it, knowing full well that the boundary between art and life is permanently erased.
It's gone.
She steps onto the stage, in the story he created, in the role he made of her. It is the ultimate capitulation, but it's also a deeply twisted kind of communion. They have finally found each other in the only space where either of them feels truly real, the performance.
It's a breathtaking ending. It leaves you feeling completely hollowed out, but also buzzing with this intellectual adrenaline.
It really does.
So let's step back for a second and connect this to you, the person listening right now. Why does this strange, atmospheric, literary slow burn matter for an adult navigating the world today? In 2025, why should we care about an aging actress and a sociopathic acting student?
Because Audition isn't really just about the theater. The theater is just the magnifying glass Katie Kitamura uses to examine a universal human condition. We are all performing versions of ourselves every single day.
We absolutely are.
Think about the masks you wear in your own life. You curate an online persona that highlights only your successes and your best angles. You adopt a specific work voice and a cheerful demeanor for Zoom meetings, even when you are internally exhausted or deeply depressed.
You play the role of the supportive partner or the patient parent when you just want to scream. We are constantly enacting roles.
Fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah.
It's the advice Xavier's dad got from the therapist. We all do it just to survive the day.
But the novel asks, what does it cost us to constantly be perceived? At what point does the performance calcify and become permanent?
That's the real danger.
If you spend 40 hours a week playing the chill, unbothered employee and another 20 hours playing the perfect aesthetic internet personality, where does your actual self go? Does it get squeezed out entirely? At what point does your work self or your internet self eat your actual self?
It's the danger of losing the shore. If we are constantly performing for an audience, whether that audience is our Instagram followers, our boss, or even our spouse, we risk hollowing out our own interiors.
We risk waking up one day in our own living rooms and realizing the walls are just thin, rickety props, and we don't know who we are when the lights finally go down.
It's a profound warning about the commodification of identity. When everything is a performance, nothing is sacred. And when the agreed-upon social scripts inevitably break down, when the lights blaze and the set flattens, we are left completely defenseless against our own suppressed chaos.
Which is exactly what happened to Tomas. He played the dignified husband so hard that when the script broke, he ended up crawling on the floor barking. It's a terrifying thought. And listen, if this conversation is making you want to pick up Audition and experience this unsettling, brilliant book for yourself, do us a favor right now. Hit that like button and subscribe to the show. We put out a new deep dive every single day, covering books that actually make you think differently and look at the world with a slightly different lens. You do not want to miss what we have coming next. So, as we wrap up, let's give a clear recommendation. Who is this book for? I will be brutally honest. This is not a cozy mystery. It is not a romantic comedy. It is not a book you read to relax on the beach with a pina colada.
No, it is decidedly unrelaxing. It demands emotional labor from the reader.
It's for readers who love psychological ambiguity. If you enjoy feeling slightly paranoid about your own relationships, if you like prose that is meticulous and sharp as a scalpel, and if you want a book that refuses to hand you easy, clean answers, then Audition is a masterpiece.
Katie Kitamura has written something truly haunting.
I agree completely. It demands your attention and rewards it with a profound sense of unease. So I want to leave you with one final idea to mull over, building on the themes we've discussed today.
Lay it on us.
Think about the role you played today. Think about the face you put on at work or the tone you use when you talk to your family. Really examine it. Now ask yourself, when you finally close your door tonight and the locks click and the audience is finally gone, are you still acting? And if you stop acting, do you still exist? Or, to bring it all the way back to that terrifying scenario we started with, if a total stranger walked up to you tomorrow and perfectly mimicked your deepest, most private physical habit, would it prove they had stolen your performance or your actual soul? Something to think about. Thanks for taking the deep dive with us today. We'll see you next time.